This is Dr. Mills inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Ford and Professor Bishop. Let's get into our major division football poll ranking in week number 8. Let's get into it. Much like the mid-major, no team dropped out. Some changes in the middle of the poll, not much at the top. Things are steady as they can be. And that's what you start finding as the season comes on. Oftentimes, things steady Eddie as they add up. We'll see if that continues to be the case. Receiving votes this week, though. Alabama State Hornets, 3-3, 2-2 on the season. Behind them, the Grambling State Tigers are 3-4, 2-2, 154 points. And Prairie View A&M come in and get into basically the top 10 at 3-4, 3-1, 148 points, receiving votes just outside of the top 7. Those that were able to make the top 7, let's get into it. All of them with winning records overall. Number 7, Alabama A&M Bulldogs at 4-3, 2-2 overall, 174 points. Previous ranked 6, so they do drop a spot as they were open this week. At number 6, Alcorn State Braves, 4-3, 3-1. Look out. The Braves are chopping. It looks like they're getting ready. They're making their move and playing some good football. And with their win, they jump over Alabama A&M, 184 points, and are at 6, previous ranked 7. Brings to number 5. Southern Jaguars are 4-3, 3-1. Just part of that tough top part of the Western Division, along with Prairie View, that's 3-1 in that race, 187 points, previous ranked 5. Interesting because people would say it's all jumbled up in the West, but they are all a part of the top 10. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that follows out. So it should be a good race down the stretch. At number 4, Jackson State Tigers, 5-3, 3-2. They bounce back as they get a win and get it done, 195 points, and they stay at number 4. Bringing us to number 3, talking about Coach Eddie George. He took the Division II program behind the woodshed, and they are looking good. Tennessee State Tigers improved to 5-2, 1-1 in the conference races. They have a good conference race coming up this week. 215 points, the previous ranked 3, so they stay right there and steady Eddie the ship. Above them at number 2, North Carolina Central, the Eagles at 6-1, 1-0, getting a big conference win. Tough matchup on Thursday night. Morgan State did everything they could do, especially on the defensive side. But the championship pedigree of the Eagles was just too much as they get it done. They have 6 first-place votes, but they are at 245, just outside of the number 1 spot that belongs to the Florida A&M Rabbits, 6-1, 5-0. 6 first-place votes, 246 points, remain number 1. Right now, it looks like you're headed for a collision course for the MEAC SWAC matchup in the Celebration Bowl. And boy, if we allow ourselves just to think it, I know some other teams want to get through it. The SWAC still has the championship game, which is always tough, but you could have 2 teams with 1 loss at this point facing off in the Celebration Bowl. Both teams are currently ranked 1 and 2 in this polls. Most of them are 1 and 2 on all HBCUs across the platforms, and they are both top 20 FCS programs in most polls out there as well. With that being said, I'm going to go to you first, Charles. What are your thoughts in the top 7 major division poll rankings in week number 8?
Spot on. Alcorn with the week off, sitting at 6 underneath Southern. Southern, good win on the road against Bethune-Cookman. I don't think I can argue with it too much. I think this is about right. Jackson State, good win on the road. Tennessee State is fighting right in there. I mean, Doc, when's the last time we've had Tennessee State in the poll, even this late in the season? I mean, it's been a second. So, no, I can't argue whatsoever. I think they are deserving of the ranking. So,
yeah, it's been at least a decade. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian. What are your thoughts? Alcorn State went out there and got it done in terms of Pine Bluffs, kind of made them pay. They look like they're improving. You got to start looking at this matchup as your first indication of what could be obviously a rematch in the championship game. You had one earlier when you went on the road to Southern, but then you got those pesky Braves sneaking out there and said they want a chance. With that being said, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 7?
Everything was just about what I had slated. maybe one team a little higher than another team by a spot. But I mean, really, that's what's interesting about this year. I mean, even your top two teams have been they haven't been clean. And when I say clean, they haven't been they haven't been excellent. They haven't been without their own flaws.
Mm.
I think we've seen Central have to come from behind. We've seen them struggle a little offensively last week. FAMU, certainly people can pick apart the offense, but their defense is what it is. It's just fascinating that so many teams at the FCS level are kind of doing this. They're just kind of fluctuating up, and then they're playing good quarters. I don't think anybody has really played a great game. And maybe look, we're coming up into November. That's when you want to be playing your best ball, right? So maybe in November we're going to start to see these teams really play their best ball. At least I hope so. That's the goal, I think, for all of them as they start to wind down to the end of the season and the championship and all the Celebration Bowl hype. But right now, this is kind of one of those weeks where it's just the status quo. Everything is chalk.
Mm.
Good stuff. You know what this is about, Charles? Some of your Jackson State fans are probably going to be a little mad at you for this. But I think this is a casualty of the prime effect. Had an interview today, writer, journalist from USA Today was asking some questions in regards to Coach Prime and the SWAC, HBCU sports. I liked this question, so hopefully I gave it to him. But then it came up to the prime effect, and I went back and talked about the 1400 Club. We kind of showed up and got a chance to get y'all name out there with the pregame show. And was the Charles and Neely. I put that out there that I had one of the first interviews on the show, particularly when it talked about Coach Prime. And it came up, I talked about the prime effect, and I told him about the history of it and how I looked at it as a merger. We talked about it on the show. And that I had researched previously about the Flutie effect. And so there were some indications that I thought this would take place. Did I know it would have the magnitude that it took place? No. But I say all this, Brian, I think what you are spoiled with and don't even realize, and a lot of fans out there, is you're seeking that perfection, which is what you had much closer what was being done because of the caliber of team that Jackson State was and what Coach Prime pushed for. And I think that is a little indication where you're getting a little fall from that and why you're wanting to see a little more clean ball and a little more of your top teams, whether it's Central or Florida A&M, really separating themselves from the field. And I don't think you get those teams very often. And I'm saying at any level. Hell, you have a lot of folks that are saying that even at the Power Five, and obviously I don't like to bring them much on the show, but I think it's perfect for this conversation. People are saying there's no clear number one team. Obviously, Georgia is looking to do something that hadn't been done in a long time in terms of three-peating, but who they played and how they played early, people are not convinced that they are a great team. Obviously, they may be the best team this year to win a championship. I think sometimes you have that just in general. And I think specifically for HBCUs and FCS this year, you kind of have yourself chasing this framework of what you believe is greatness. With that being said, go ahead. You want to jump in?
That's a great point because think back to what I remember SWAC Media Day. And I know Rattler Nation got on me because I kept trying to tell people what statistically Jackson State did last year was like so high up here when I went back and looked at the numbers that I had to even appreciate what we saw. And it didn't end the way everyone thought it would, and it came short of the perfect season. But when you go back and look at statistically everything they did, man, that was a team and a season. And that's what we're all looking at. Like you said, we're all looking at what we experienced last year, the points per game. I mean, it was some Billy Joe-esque stuff that Jackson said, and that's with the defense on one side. You had a top-rated defense on one side of the ball, a high-scoring offense on the other side of the ball, a high-level, Power 5, Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback. I mean, we had. I mean, a lot. That's what we hadn't seen since the '90s in the SWAC.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I told somebody, simply put, my belly is full. Like I've seen like high caliber football over the past 2 seasons, and I'm content. I of course, you want to see your team do really well, but it's like, I'm sort of in a watch and see sort of mode this past season or this season, but it's like I've seen something that, quite honestly, you just don't see every year. So
it's very true. Even if you go back 2 seasons ago, they didn't go undefeated, but you had FAMU,
yes,
defensive at least, that was playing at such a high level too, that you had it for 2 teams in regards to them being both in the top 25, both of them, chasing that championship and forcing the other one to play well and chasing it down. FAMU got the playoff bid because they were having that such strong magical season. And then let me add one last thing. Think about the coaching tree that was done in terms of those programs, but particularly at Jackson State. You have TC Taylor that has, moved to the head coaching position. We know what he does in his pedigree. He was offensive coordinator. His natural progression was to become head coach. Very solid coach to be. He's going to learn whatever. But think about him. He was buried to some degree in the coaching tree. So think about how much coaching pedigree was deep at Jackson State as well. Not just the players and those playing, but the coaching talent around that team was extremely deep. And you lose some of it. Obviously, you bring in great coaches as well. But all of that was essentially in one place. That's a lot when you really start to think about. And we won't, until we get further out of history, we'll get a much more appreciation. But sometimes it's hard to live in it. So I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because it gave me a chance to really think about it. And then in the interview today, I really shined on it. So it seemed like the right time to come to put that out there.